We are currently conducting a research. I'm currently conducting a research on the use of ICT and AI in school education, in vocational education in SCO countries. And this is some preliminary findings from that research. And this research is conducted with the support of UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies and Education. Let me start with the structure of the presentation. So I'll tell you a little more about the report. I'll show you abbreviations briefly, just so that so if you see some abbreviations in the report, you know what they mean. And then the main part, obviously, is country highlights, and then there is conclusion and questions and answers part, where we can have a discussion about what we saw. So what this report is about, first of all, the purpose of the report was to find out what is the state of the art of ICT use and AI use in the school education, college, and vocational education in those countries. So that was the main purpose of the report. So we're not looking at what happened in the past. We're looking at what happened in the last 2-3 years in the post-pandemic world. And we're looking at the most interesting, most notable initiatives and at the state of the affairs, really. This is a desktop study, a desktop research. We are not collecting any primary data. So anything we look at, it's called secondary data. So anything we looked at is whatever is available in online in open access. So if there is not there, we wouldn't know. And we have to trust the resources that we see online. And the focus of the presentation is to show you some highlights, because there is a lot of information, believe me, and it's not possible to even give you all the preliminary findings in a 15-20-minute presentation. So we're looking mostly at the big picture, although on the slides you will see quite a lot of details, which I won't be sort of enunciating. I'll be just giving you overall sort of gist of it, and then you can see on the slide the details. Obviously, there are limitations. I said we have to trust the information that we find online, and sometimes there are some interesting implications of this, which I will show you in case with some countries. So that's important to know. There will be a final report, a written report, which will be available in February, I guess, Tatiana, right? And if you have any further questions, you again can, I guess, contact UNESCO and Tatiana. And finally, about myself, I'm a doctoral researcher at University of Warwick. I'm also a senior consultant at Warwick Projects Consultancy. And I've been in education for more than 20 years, actually. And I've been, initially, I started my career as an ICT teacher. So back like more than a decade ago. So that's me. So let's get started with abbreviations. I'm guessing all of you know what this means, so just I'll leave it to hang there for maybe like 10-15 seconds. So this is it. And let's start with country highlights. So we'll start with India. India is the biggest country in the world currently, the largest, the biggest in terms of population. And here you can see its GDP per capita, and you can see the government expenditure on education as a percentage of GDP, and the percentage of all government expenditure. So basically, if you're looking at budget of India, 14% of the budget is spent on education. So it's a little statistical information here. So what are the key messages from our research? First of all, we saw quite a few state-sponsored nationwide platforms for online learning, which were developed in the last few years, and they were even presented at the G20 summit. There is this very interesting initiative called ATL. So they're launching innovation labs in secondary schools, and there are quite a lot of them. And which was surprising to me is that India has the highest relative AI skill penetration rate, higher than everyone, and it's even higher, 3 times the world average. And national education policy has a special focus on competency-based education, and which includes multimodal teaching and learning and very active use of technology. So to give you specific examples, first one is Diksha, is quite famous in India and even worldwide. It's one, I think, of the most versatile platforms, because if you can see, the content is available in 36 languages, 29 of them Indian languages and 7 foreign languages. We haven't really seen an app that has content in so many languages really in other countries. It has content and online content for all grades, obviously, and there are some numbers on the right. So it's quite impressive numbers. So every day they have 30 million visitors. Every day, 30 million visitors. I mean, India is a huge country, obviously, but still numbers are quite impressive. And they have introduced recently an AI-based bot where you can ask where you can make voice queries, you can ask questions, just a mathematical question, a question in biology, in physics, whatever, and then the app will reply to you. So basically, it's kind of replacing, not replacing, but helping teachers by answering simple questions. So it's quite an impressive app used by Indian students. The second, 2 initiatives actually are connected because they have very similar names. First, on the left is an online platform. It's mainly aimed for students from grade 9 and higher, and it has it's less impressive than Diksha, but it was launched before that, and it's also available to higher education, for universities. So, and the platform on the right is very interesting. It's actually a TV channel, a suite of TV channels, 59 TV channels, and it was launched during the pandemic, during the lockdown, and it was offering 4 hours of new content every day, which was then repeated 6 times, so that students can watch it at any point. And basically, it was to help teachers with teaching during the pandemic, and they had separate channel for every grade. So that is really impressive. And obviously, it's not used as much these days, but it has content in 3 languages, and they even had channels for universities and for exam prep. So basically, you turn on TV, and there is like 4 hours of new content every day. So that was Swaya Prabha. The Atal Thinking Labs that I mentioned is a very innovative approach, in my opinion. It includes opening a lab with electronics, with robotics, with sensors, 3D printers, all that stuff. Sometimes we can call that Fab Lab, a Fab Lab. And these labs are opened in different schools. More than 10,000 schools are now operational. And it has launched recently, actually. I don't remember the year, but it's like no more than a couple of years. And they're all already operational in many schools. But again, even 10,000 labs, which would be a big number for any other country, only covers about 3 to 7% of secondary schools in India. So that's a big number, but for India, it's not big enough still. So that's Atal Thinking Lab. And talking about AI in school education, I mentioned that India has the highest relative AI skill penetration rate, and is only among Shanghai organizational cooperation countries. Only China is in that list with 1.5 times the world average, and in the education industry, India's lead is even higher, actually. And nevertheless, there is moderate interest to AI, as per Google Trends, and AI is used to aid teachers. And there has been a big report on AI, which was published last year, which looked at some problems with AI, such as lack of inclusivity, especially with access for minorities and girls, and lack of human dimension. So it's emerging industry in India, but there is a lot of distance to cover. With regards to special educational needs students, or they call Divyang in India, it's also being it's one of the fundamental principles of the national curriculum, and there is training available to teachers. They train on how to work with such students, and there is a big improvement. If only 2% of children with disabilities attended schools 20 years ago, now the number is up to 61%, and there are some initiatives on the right. And I want to, my last slide about India would be incomplete without mentioning one of the biggest actually platforms in the world, which is called BYGUS.com. It's an Indian platform, and as you can see here, it's the green line at the top. It has 670 million visitors in just 1 month. So, and these 4 other platforms are also from India, all of them. So you have Vedantu, you have Topper, you have Unacademy, and this is just for comparison, a platform that has almost 2,000 visitors in 1 month. So these are very big numbers, and BYGUS is actually world's biggest ed tech, most valued ed tech, and I'll show you the metrics later. So what is notable is that Indian edtech market is one of the biggest in the world, actually, and it's actually kind of the biggest. And 40% of this market is pre-K and K-12 segments. So basically kindergarten and school, which is again different because it's not unusual for vocational education or business education to be the highest grossing sectors, but in India it's schools. So that's quite impressive. So moving on to China. China is the second biggest country in the world. The difference is about 50 million at the moment, I guess. So they're like rivals. China has much higher GDP per capita compared to India. And obviously the expenditure on education is a bit lower because they have a bigger economy. So here are the numbers. So what are the key messages? There were, I say were, and I'll tell you why were, quite big online learning platform. They still exist, but something changed. And I'll tell you a little more about later. In China, quite a lot of online learning platforms. There are apps for everything, really, with huge numbers of users. And AI is actively used in some schools. Obviously, there is a full plethora of interactive boards, tablets, digital teaching platforms, and 95% of schools have multimedia classrooms, and 70% of schools have digital teaching resources. There are some messages about VR and AR, which are also implemented in China, and there are some startups like Classin. And mobile learning is also quite sort of percentage is high compared to overall number of learners. Big number of learners learn using online mobile learning. Sorry. So these are the key messages. So look, if we look at government initiatives, there are a few of them, several of them. Compulsory education curriculum and standards, which encourages and promotes personalized education through the use of technology. And the Suspending Classes Without Stopping Learning initiative, which was launched during COVID. So it's about online education, integration of online and offline education, and collaboration with technology companies to make that happen. There is a Education Informatization 2.0 action plan, it's actually called that. So it's interesting because it makes point of 3 things. So it says that it should be innovation-driven, not technology-driven approach. So again, some initiatives make that mistake. They focus on technology rather than on innovation. It focuses on digital resources, not just scanned versions of paper textbooks. It's about digital literacy and not applied ICT skills. So these are quite three important distinctions. And there is a Smart Education for China of China initiative, which which sets three platforms: one for higher education, one for K-12 education, one for vocational education. So a network of three integrated platforms. So this is interesting. As I mentioned on my first slide about China, there were very big private initiatives, very big tutoring platforms actually, which were catering to K2 segment, so K-12 segment, sorry, which is schools, basically kindergarten and schools. What happened when you see what you see on the left is this company, Yuan Fudao, was actually highest valued edtech startup in the world, and it was valued at 15 billion US dollars back then, and it was one of China's most innovative companies. However, what happened in 2021, China's authorities stepped up restrictions on private education industry. So companies were not allowed to make profit from tutoring, and they were not allowed to raise capital from stock exchange, from stock listings, or from foreign investors. This led to a lot of these companies, which I mentioned, which I'm listed here, basically losing their value in quite quickly. And in January 2023, they were all removed from the unicorn list because their value dropped. And let me remind you, these two companies, for example, were valued at 25 billion before this crackdown on private education industry. So that's what happened. This is why when you look at China, you see all of this information about them being very big, but then you realize they're not really, some of them not even really operational today. So I don't know if it's good or bad, but that's just what it is at the moment. To give you a better example, this is 2020, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 edtech unicorns from India. And this is the same graph from today, basically from April 2023. You can see the biggest edtech unicorn in India, which is a learning platform, BYGU, the one that I told you about India. And the other platforms are, and UN Academy, which is also from India. And other are from United States and other countries, no unicorn from China, not even one. So basically, this is what happened. And all Chinese companies were knocked off the unicorn list. Not all of them, most of them. AI educations are also used in China. There is a white paper, a new generation of artificial intelligence technology development plan, it's called. And it wants AI industry in China to become very big and to produce 140 billion USD in 2030. In practice, what happens in practical dimensions? So some schools use AI-powered cameras to control students' attention. Neural headbands. You can see the picture on the right. So basically, it's a headband that allows teachers to see how the student is thinking. Are they distracted? Are they focused? Are they emotional? Whatever. So it's an interesting initiative. Some say, and quite fair, that it's not as accurate, but this is what they do in some schools. Squirrel AI, one of the, it's the biggest, considered biggest, #1 in its industry. So it works with students to use intelligent adaptive approach. For example, if they're learning maths, they have 10,000. They have 10,000 things that they should learn in middle school maths. So the platform will automatically create a personalized learning plan and guide the student through those tasks. Some other AI initiatives. So Pakistan is also quite a big country, but much smaller than India and China, obviously. It has a lower GDP per capita, much lower, and its situation is different, and you can see it from the presentation as well. There is a very high number of children that are not attending school, and it's quite astonishing. Like 44% of children who are aged from 5 to 16 are not attending school. This is a big problem for Pakistan. Let me remind you, like in India, for example, India is about 5.5 times bigger, and the number of students that are not attending school is much lower. It's about 1,200,000. And in Pakistan, which is smaller, the number is way bigger. And in this situation, the role of educational technology becomes even more crucial, especially online learning. There are some state initiatives, and I'll tell about them later. And there is the first mobile learning app for children was only launched this year. And it's a great initiative. However, even because of the cost of internet access, it's still not some students in rural areas especially cannot get that, cannot use that app because they need to pay for internet subscription, which would be like mobile packages, data packages, etc. So Teleschool Pakistan mobile app was launched this year. You can see sort of metrics, what it offers. And as I said, there is about 50,000 views and about 43,000 users in the last, I think, half a year. So that's not very high, to be honest. And it's only available in English. So for children who do not know English, they won't be able to use the interface, sadly. But this is a good development that this app is being launched, was launched. During the pandemic, there was a TV channel called Teleschool, which was again broadcasting live lessons every day, but it was only 30 to 60 minutes per grade. So I don't think that was enough. Nevertheless, it helped, and parents were satisfied that it was there. Yeah. Sabak is an online platform. It's a private initiative. I would say even non-government initiative. It has it caters to all grades, has all subjects, and even content for kindergarten. And at the moment, it has 5 million users, which is good. And they try to do what they can to help online learning industry in Pakistan. And there are a few other initiatives which you can see on your screen: Talim Abad app, Learn Smart Classroom, Tele Talim, and Wonder Tree. So different initiatives that try to bring that positive change through technology. And one more thing, Pakistan is actually a country which has two huge provinces, Punjab and Sindh, which together count for 75% of all population. That's why those provinces launched their own initiatives, which are shown on the screen. Talim Guard, You Learn, and in Sindh province, they work with Sabah to launch their own program also. You'll see a lot of word Talim. Talim means education in Urdu. That's why a lot of apps called Talim. So that's Pakistan. Russia is smaller than Pakistan, but has very high GDP per capita in 2022. And expenditure on education, you can see, is actually percentage of all government expenditure in Russia is the lowest among all the countries, which is interesting. But I guess it could be also said because it has a big economy. Key messages. There are a few initiatives that Russian government introduced, but there are not as many as in India, for example. But there is new online platform called My School, which almost all of the 95% of schools are already connected. It was launched this year. It was in testing since last year. There's a lot of educational platforms, which some of them are quite when you look at numbers, they're biggest in the world, actually. And there is AI and VR and AR also used for teaching of languages and for of subjects. And unlike other countries, Russia has its own Yandex GPT, which is a rival of ChatGPT, which is quite good actually. When people tested it, it was quite good. So what about government initiatives? So My School online learning platform on the right launched in this year. And at the moment, 95% of schools are connected. It has 6.4 million visitors, which is not bad considering if in China you have 30 million visitors, but that kind of is 6 times bigger. So that kind of tracks. And there is this digital educational environment program, which is also was launched much early, and there are some quite good achievements. There are actually a lot of online educational platforms in Russia. Biggest ones are Uchiru, Yandex, Uchebnik, Skyeng, and Foxford, and they're quite popular. For example, Uchiru has during the pandemic, it was the second most visited educational website in the world, the second most visited. So that's quite impressive. And it has a big number of monthly visitors, so more than Coursera or Khan Academy worldwide. So that is a lot. AI is actively used in education, and I mentioned the Yandex GPT. It surpasses even ChatGPT 3.5 and sometimes outperforms ChatGPT 4, but still obviously behind it, and they have their own virtual assistant. Uzbekistan, I'm trying to speed up because I'm conscious of time. Yeah, Uzbekistan is quite also a big country, but you see the numbers on the screen. It spends quite a lot on education. Key messages that there are several government initiatives. There is only one online private school at the moment. And there are connectivity issues, obviously. So here on the screen, you can see some government initiatives from Uzbekistan. So e-Maktab is one of the best. Online Maktab is a TV and YouTube content with video lessons, and Zionet. And Maktab is sort of like the most modern state-funded online learning platform, online school. With it was launched this year, and Leader Online School is the first online private school. So Tajikistan is a smaller country, and the biggest problem in Tajikistan is internet access. So it's quite low. The internet penetration is quite low. But Tajikistan actively works with international organizations such as UNICEF, UNESCO, European Union, and there are quite a lot of initiatives, partnerships they do together, and they actively use Russian online platforms. So government initiatives are on the screen, and I would like to move to partnerships with UNICEF. So there are Magic Box is a platform for kindergarten students and primary education and kindergarten students. Maktab Mobile is another initiative, Almost Gore Mobile, and UNICEF actually contributed in total 7.6 million to advanced technology education in Tajikistan. And more initiatives on the screen. Recently they secured, just a few days ago, they secured a grant from ADB to improve STEM teaching for grades 5 to 11. And Kazakhstan is also has quite high GDP per capita, and spends almost 14% on education. His messages are that Kazakhstan introduces digital skills quite early from grade 1. Students are taught about cybersecurity. There are new programs that were implemented in vocational education to train specialists for digital industry. So there are 2 programs, Digital Kazakhstan and Digital Literacy. There are a lot of online resources. Quite high number of schools connected to that are using those resources, almost like 90%, 95% of schools using a lot of resources that are available online. So unlike some other countries, Kazakhstan has a very, very high number of resources that are available online. And there are 2 portals that is 2 online learning platforms that you can see online, and you can see that they have quite a big number of resources available compared to, for example, Tajikistan or Kyrgyzstan. They have a lot of resources and a big number of students and schools using those resources. Talking about Kyrgyzstan, it's has one of the lowest GDP per capita among SCO countries, so it's more difficult for them and smaller population to have those big platforms like India. They can't really compete. But they're trying what they can, and I'll skip to initiatives. So they have a few systems. Most famous of them are Sanarip Sabak on the right, and Aybulat. So the Aybulat is for primary school, and Sanarip Sabak is for all grades. And it was a YouTube channel, but now it's a website that is used every month. So it's active, and it has quite a good number of visitors for a small country. And it's in early stages, and there's still sort of like it's only been 2-3 years since they introduced the online admission to universities, for example, for school graduates. But they're trying their best. So as you can see on the right, quite a lot of teachers are learning digital literacy and other things, technology related. And there are a few private NGO initiatives, and the biggest sponsor of this is Soros Foundation in Kyrgyzstan. They did quite a lot of impressive projects, and one of them, for example, offering free programming courses for anyone interested in Kyrgyzstan, and they want to train 50,000 programmers by 2030, and they do it for free. Yeah. So that was it. Thank you. Sorry, it was longer than I thought. That's quite a lot of interesting data, actually.
There is a question: what is camera-powered classroom?
Camera-powered, AI-powered. I think it was AI-powered classrooms in camera. So in China, they have in some schools they implement cameras which observe students in the class, and when those cameras have AI functionality in them. So AI analyzes how often, for example, a student is distracted, or how often do they check their phones, and then based on that, it informs the teacher, or maybe gives I don't know, some number to that student indicating that they're not as engaged in the lesson. So a teacher can see that from the data and then sort of take action, basically, to make sure that is not happening as often.
Thank you.